Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon if you're on the East Coast, and welcome to Stayin Alive After Your 45. Those who have followed us in the past know that Charles and I have done webinars called Stayin Alive in Your 45, how to kind of save your 1031 exchange, make sure you got the right properties identified. But we're, in this crazy market, we're hearing people talk about, oh my gosh, my 45-day period passed and it's a failed exchange and now it's taxable. So we thought we'd do another webinar today about staying alive after you're 45. What can you do to kind of recover from a failed 1031 exchange? And we'll cover a number of topics here. With that, let me quickly introduce Exeter 1031 Exchange Services to you for those who haven't worked with us before. Exeter 1031 Exchange is a qualified intermediary or accommodator for 1031 exchanges. We do all types of 1031 exchanges. We cover all 50 states. We're also one of the few that does foreign property transactions. Just kind of some quick facts on Exeter 1031 is we're one of the few qualified intermediaries that has any kind of regulatory oversight. We took a number of years of going through the review and approval process to get a trust company charter. And that means that all of our funds are held by Exeter Trust Company, which is licensed, regulated, and audited by the Wyoming Division of Banking. So you can be sure that a third-party government agency is looking over our shoulders and making sure that we are operating in a safe and sound manner. Now, we've been doing this for a long time. This is Exeter's 19th year doing 1031 exchanges. Personally, it's my 38th year doing 1031 exchanges. So we've done quite a bit. We're more consultative and advisory in nature, so you can bounce ideas off of us, et cetera, and we can help kind of walk you and your advisors through the entire process. The trust company I mentioned is Exeter Trust Company, and again, it's licensed, regulated, and audited by the Wyoming Division of Banking. That means we offer separate, segregated, qualified trust accounts for each client. They each get their own separate qualified trust for their 1031 exchange funds. It's held by a regulated entity. And those funds are automatically spread across a number of banks so that you get more than $250,000 in FDIC insurance. We also offer self-directed IRAs where investors want to use their IRA accounts to invest in real estate, mortgages, deeds of trust, tax lien certificates, non-traded REITs, and things like that. We offer title holding trust or land trust where folks want to negotiate, acquire, and hold real estate in a confidential and private manner. We also do kind of specialty holding escrows. So if a title or escrow company can't do a specific type of holdback escrow because of their regulatory constraints, we can take a look at it and see if we can help out with that. So with that said, let's jump right into Stayin Alive After You're 45. I have to give credit to that name for Charles. He's a master at coming up with the designations there, so that's a fantastic name. Love it. And with that, we are in a very difficult real estate market. Obviously, we've been doing this now for two and a half years, where it's been a tight market, tight inventory, fast-paced, multiple offers, prices above asking price. All of this, now we have higher interest rates. Our past webinars, we've talked about staying alive in your 45. We've talked about the Delaware Statutory Trust as another replacement property option, a backup strategy, et cetera. And so you can refer back to those webinars if you want more information on the Delaware Statutory Trust. But what happens when you cannot complete your 1031 exchange and it technically fails? So now you have a failed exchange, you weren't able to acquire your replacement property or identify any replacement properties. So a couple of the questions that come up is, well, it's failed, when is it taxable? What are the consequences overall? So first topic is there's no federal or state penalty for any type of a failed exchange. You just pay the taxes you would normally pay, but there's not a penalty because you didn't complete it. But the taxes, I guess, are kind of a penalty in a sense. So the other question is, when are those taxes due? And that's not really the topic for today, but I wanted to mention it real quick, which is when the exchange fails, the qualified intermediary is holding your funds. The question is, when do you, as the taxpayer, have the right to receive the funds or the right to access the funds? And that's when it's taxable. So if your 45th day and or your 180th day lands in the same tax year, you have the right to receive the proceeds in the same tax year, let's say this year, then it's taxable this year. But if your exchange straddles 2 tax periods, so that you sold your relinquished property this year, but your 45th and or your 180th day lands next year, you may not have the right to receive your proceeds until next year. In that case, the tax consequence might get pushed into the following year. So just ask your tax advisor to take a look at that and see what year your tax consequence may land in. A lot of tax advisors don't realize that the Section 1031 of the Internal Revenue Code works in conjunction with Section 453 of the Internal Revenue Code, which is the installment sale treatment. And that's what authorizes the deferral of the gain, at least into the next year. So just mention to your tax advisor that Section 1031 and Section 453 work in conjunction. Let them take it from there. If they'd like, we can always jump on a call to discuss that. But having said all that, how can we recover from a failed 1031 exchange? So first off, again, check with your tax advisor. You may have net operating loss carry forwards. You may have suspended passive activity losses. There could be other losses or other type of activity on your tax return that could offset some or all of the gains. So it may not be a problem. In most cases, it is a problem. It's going to be a taxable event. So what can we do? There are certain types of investments you can make, such as oil and gas investments that produce a credit. It's a dollar for dollar credit on your tax return that could offset the gain. So typically that's something like drilling or exploration for oils, or oil well or gases, and that would give you a credit. That's a very specific niche. You really have to understand what that is and what that means and how it works before you really jump into it. But certain types of investments could produce a tax credit that would offset the gain. Not for everybody, but what's more common today, and that's our topic, is the qualified opportunity zone. That may be a great viable recovery strategy. So even if the 1031 exchange fails, you can reinvest your taxable gain and defer the tax, et cetera. With that, we're going to turn that one over to Charles Jensen. And Charles is the Western Divisional Director and Senior Vice President of Inland Securities Corporation. We all know them probably for the Delaware Statutory Trust, but they also do qualified opportunity zones. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Charles.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bill. Appreciate that. If we could turn the presenter over to me, it'd be awesome too. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's great to be here today. And this is a big topic right now because, basically staying alive after you're 45 is what do you do when you have a failed exchange? What are the options and opportunities? And that's what we talked to in the past is usually, you want to look to a 1031 exchange. That's the first place we go when we deal with these types of issues. I'm gonna bring up some slides here. Just give me a quick second. I want to show you some options that we have for this, looking for a 1031 exchange. Can you see my screen okay, Bill?
Yes.
All right, so I'm gonna full screen this here. So we're gonna talk about opportunity zones today. So these came back in 2017 under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And clearly, for everyone on the call today, you're here because you've run into an issue where you have probably a busted exchange. You've gone past your 45 days, and what do you recommend? And typically, we work in 1031 exchanges and DSTs, and we work in opportunity zones. So this is the option we bring up to a lot of people that have had a failed exchange because you typically have to hold your money for 180 days, correct, Bill, with Exeter. And then your first day out of Exeter starts your opportunity zone requirement. And you typically have 180 days to basically get into an opportunity zone. So let's talk about opportunity zones first, where these came from and how these exist. So back in 2017, under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, they created something called opportunity zones. Now, this came out of a think tank from a guy named Sean Parker, who was the founder of Napster, very smart guy, said, I have this idea to inject private money into neighborhoods that need help. And this is a bipartisan bill. It came about from Tim Scott of South Carolina, Republican, and Democrat Cory Booker of New Jersey, bipartisan bill to address these issues. So they're focusing on revitalizing economically distressed communities. This is designed to spur economic development and job creation and may provide capital gain tax benefits to investors. There's no limitations in the amount of capital invested into the program. Now, this is how it works. Back in 2017, when they wanted to create these special tax zones, these opportunity zones, they're using census data. So the census is done every 10 years, every decade, right? So in 2017, the census was done back in 2010. And you think about 2010, that was 7 years prior. Think about where you live. I used to live in Santa Monica, and you see a lot of gentrification and things changing. I was in a neighborhood that's considered bad many years ago, now considered a top neighborhood. So you'll see these opportunity zones pop up. There's over 8,700 of these opportunity zones created across the nation. And these opportunity zones are areas, again, where it's higher unemployment. These are areas that might have just some blighted areas of the country. But believe it or not, Beverly Hills, there's a little section that's an opportunity zone. Costa Mesa, if you're in California, there's an opportunity zone. They're all over the nation. So 8,700, the governors of each state designated where these opportunity zones would exist. And so going to an opportunity zone allows you to defer and eliminate some taxes if you do this the correct way. So I just want to go over a couple of facts here. I'm not going to use every slide for the amount of time. I want to kind of give you the idea behind this without going into too much detail, but enough to give you a really good idea. So qualified opportunity zone funds, they're organized as corporations, partnership, LLC qualifies if it elects such taxation, not as a sole proprietorship. They're created for the purpose of investing in opportunity zone properties, holds at least 90% of its assets in the QOZ business and assets, right? So I wanted to go over the basic benefits of the opportunity zone fund, and I can do that by showing you some of these slides that go over the time frame of an opportunity zone fund and how this works. So when you look at opportunity zones, I'm sorry, I'm looking for a specific slide here. Let me go back. Doesn't have the slide I'm looking for, but when you look at opportunity zones, there it is. Sorry, Bill, I'm a little backlogged on the changing of slides. Slight delay. Here it is. So once you sell your gain, you have certain tax benefits. So an opportunity zone allows you to take any gain. It could be from real estate, it could be from cryptocurrency, it could be a sell of a stock, bond, or mutual fund. All you have to do is take the gain in the situation. So once your funds are released back to you from Exeter, all you have to invest is the actual gain itself. So let's say you had a $1 million gain, okay, that you realized, and let's say it realized in 2022 or 2023, you have 180 days to get that invested. Now, here's how it works, is the gain is invested into an opportunity zone fund that we have, and we get special tax benefits. What it says is if we buy an apartment building, for example, or a student housing facility that costs $10 million, we have to put $10 million and a penny into redevelopment. And this is how we inject this private capital into these areas. So what we have to do is you're going to defer your taxes. So you pay no taxes in 23 or 24 or 25. Now come year 2026, you owe taxes on the gain. So the taxes are due, but here's how this works. We go in with all cash into our opportunity zone projects. And in 2026, we do a cash out refinance to give you some of your equity to pay the tax bill. Because we're assuming a lot of people are not going to have the money for the tax bill in 26. So by doing a cash out refinance, it does not trigger the gain for tax purposes. Now what happens is we help you pay your tax with some of the equity. So you're not coming out of pocket again, you're still deferred. And if we hold this investment for 10 years, as you can see here, we get out tax free. There's a step up in basis and you're out tax free in the gain. So the beautiful thing is we can defer the taxes, right? Through the 10-year period, if we do this correctly, and by getting the cash out refinance in 26, so you don't pay any tax for 10 years. And after 10 years, we're going to liquidate as soon as possible and get your money back to you tax free. So this is a great way to take your broken exchange, invest it into one of these programs, which is great for communities. It's typically development, so it's great for you, and it can help you with your tax needs. And I just want to give you a rough idea on opportunity zones and how they work. So let's talk about what we're doing. What is our fund focusing on in our opportunity zone opportunity? Now, we took a look at this, and there's different opportunity zones out there, and I always recommend to talk to a financial advisor to diversify. And by reaching back out to Exeter, they can help direct you if you need some help with this. But the beautiful thing about this is we're going after student housing facilities. Now, as you know, a lot of student housing facilities had some issues during COVID. What we're doing is we're building these student housing facilities like one street off campus. So we have full control of our property. If there is another pandemic, a situation arises, we are able to not have the exodus of students. A lot of parents don't want them back, and a lot of students don't want to go back. They want to stay. So a lot of our student housing facilities flourished during COVID because we had people coming over that were being kicked out of their dorms and there were places within the universities. Higher education, however you see it, enrollment has been increasing, is expected to increase over the years moving forward. And we're focusing on tier 1 universities, investment activities focused on undersupplied markets with growing enrollment. And 2/3 of off-campus student housing is non-institutional, non-purpose built. The great thing too is if we needed to, we could bring in some non-student folks into these types of properties. So what we're focusing on is why our opportunity makes so much sense is we have eliminated a lot of the developmental risk. Most opportunity zones have to go out and develop properties. You have these environmental risks. You start digging holes and finding soil samples that are bad. You run into a lot of issues when you're doing a full developmental deal. We have eliminated a good amount of this developmental risk. Plus, most opportunity zone funds have no income. I'm sure it's the reason you're doing a 1031 exchange to get some income. We have income from day one. So let me explain. What we're doing is we partner up with a company called Core Spaces. Core Spaces is the #1 developer in student housing facilities nationwide. They go out and they build the property in advance, right? They build it in advance. And when they build this property in advance, what happens is they hand us the keys at the very end. And once they hand us the keys, we take a certificate of occupancy. So they took the risk of the development. They took the risk of getting everything done with this property, simply hand us the keys, and then we rent it out to the students. So this is a great strategy because A, we get instant income from day one on this, where most funds are waiting for a few years, but also we have a pre-existing property. It was just developed. We're not worried about it. It was done and handed over to us in general. And I wanted to show you one of the examples of one of the properties that's in here. I happen to live in Los Angeles, but we work on a national level. And this is a picture in the top right-hand corner of what's called the Hub LA Coliseum. This is University of Southern California, USC. And this is not the type of student housing you see in the movies like Animal House and these concrete prison-looking structures that they hose out. Student housing facilities have become beautiful properties. Right, you're seeing here is a rooftop pool, the bottom right-hand corner. You see the view of LA in the background. And if you see the street there, that's Figueroa Street. That's the street that ends USC campus. Across the street is USC with the trees. And behind it is the 110 freeway for accessibility. So what's nice about this is, again, it's one street off campus. You can see the torch from the Coliseum if you know USC property. It's a tier 1 university. Most kids get into school, you have to have a pretty high GPA, 3.940, or be on the rowing team or something again, right? It's a very difficult school to get into. So these are good students, and the parents are guaranteeing the rents for the year. We can literally lock each door if someone moves out. The average student going to USC in these tier 1 universities, their parents make about $350,000 a year on average. So we know that they're good for it. Plus their parents back it up in advance, and we get them to sign the year prior. So we know occupancy is good for our different properties that are there. So again, it's Core Spaces, the #1 developer of the student housing facilities. We're going out nationwide. We have another property just developed, University of Southern Florida, Tampa. that has done something very similar, gone out and we've taken over, the property from Core Spaces at the very end. And these are beautiful properties here in Florida. The beautiful pool, the pink flamingo looking lawn chairs, and these properties are beautiful. So again, this is an idea to take your broken exchange money. The day you get it back from Exeter, after the 180 days is over, again, you have another 180 days to get invested into an opportunity zone fund. If done correctly, you pay no tax, right? You can defer your taxes, kick the can down the road, and in 10 years, get out tax-free on the growth and everything after that process. So I just want to kind of give you a basic update on how this works, how this is put together. And Bill, I'll turn it back over to you. Do you want to talk a little bit about how this works as far as, the 180 days after the exchange, is released, the funds are released?
Sure, absolutely. And we also have a question that we can kind of address. Let me get the right screen up here, which would probably help. So good question. I mentioned at the very beginning, when the exchange fails, the Section 1031 works in conjunction with Section 453. So the funds that we're holding are kind of treated like an installment note. They're your funds, but the regulations are very specific as to when we can release the funds to you. So with Section 1031 working in conjunction with Section 453, that could delay the start of your deadline or the time frame in which you have to reinvest in the qualified opportunity zone. So the concern always is, what if you sell and can't finish your 1031 exchange, and the qualified intermediary has to hold the funds for the full 180-day window? That's where the Section 453 can come in, and your deadline probably doesn't start until the funds are actually accessible by you. So that's what you can have your tax advisor look at and kind of help save the day there. The other question we had was, can a qualified opportunity zone be used with a 1031 exchange? And that gets a little complicated, but the short answer is no. They're really kind of different animals. You would either do a 1031 exchange and buy replacement property, or you'd have an exchange that fails, it is taxable, and then you'd use the taxable gain and reinvest, as Charles mentioned, in the qualified opportunity zone, which would kind of help you recover from that failed exchange. The issue is that the qualified opportunity zones are typically structured as an LLC format, and what you're really investing in is the LLC, which means you're a partner in a partnership, and that wouldn't qualify for 1031 exchange treatment. And in most cases, if you're doing a 1031 exchange, you really want to reinvest in property that you're finding, or a Delaware statutory trust or something like that. And as Charles mentioned, the qualified opportunity zones can be any kind of gain from any kind of asset. So they're kind of mutually exclusive, but they can kind of help each other, recover when needed. So if Charles, was that good? Do you want to add anything to that, or?
No, that was great. Bill, if they have interest in learning more about this and getting referred over, who should they contact? Or where did I see your contact?
And we can get you and I on the phone, with whatever questions they might have. So give us a call. Our contact information is on the screen right now, and I'm out of the national headquarters office in San Diego, so you can reach me at the 619-239-3091. Or you can go to our website, exeter1031.com, and speak to any of our regional offices that might help as well. And then Fulong Tran is our chief of staff. He can certainly arrange a phone call or a conference call or go-to meeting with you and any of our team that could be of help there. And Charles, do you want them just to reach out and then I'll get you on the phone, or?
Yeah, that'd be great. That way, reach out as needed. There's no pressure. We're consultants on this. I could have literally spoken for hours on opportunity zones. We really shortened this down just to give you an idea that this is an option that many people don't realize. And Bill, I got to say that it's really good of you to provide this type of webinar to your clients, because it's nice that QIs that care about people that weren't able to find a property in the 45 days. So thanks for setting this up. Appreciate that.
Absolutely, our pleasure. It's all about education and giving you options, and really helping the investor know what the possibilities are so they can make a better informed investment decision, especially when something goes wrong. you just don't want to write it off as a failed exchange. There may be a way here to recover from that. So absolutely. Thank you for presenting the topic. We really appreciate that. It's awesome information.
Thank you. It's great to be here today. Have a great
for joining us. And if you have any questions, give us a call. We'll be happy to chat. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.